So greetings of peace and love to everyone joining us tonight. And in behalf of the Bahrain Meditation Center and the centers here in the Middle East, we would want to welcome, our pleasure to welcome everyone. So with the two groups that we have, the Zoom group, in the Zoom group, the English group, and the Arabic translation translated by Dr. Awatif Sharaf. We truly appreciate your precious time spent with us tonight, most especially to our dearly beloved speaker, Mike George. So Mike George is with us tonight. And really, we are so fortunate because otherwise, if not because of this situation, it would have been difficult to get Mike George around. So although some of you are familiar with Mike George attending his talks whenever he's around, let me at this point allow me to share some points about Mike George. So Mike George, of course, will do the inspirational talk on the 4 levels of relaxation, living a balanced life. Mike George is an author so far of 16 books focused on self-understanding and spiritual intelligence. With insight, wisdom, and humor, he brings together the 3 key strands of the 21st century. 1, the self-awareness, emotional, spiritual intelligence, and take note for the third one is continuous unlearning. It's not learning, but it is continuous unlearning. So his books include, these are the bestsellers, and some of you might have these books: Being Yourself, Don't Get Mad, Get Wise, The 7 Myths About Love. So without much ado, it is our pleasure to present tonight our inspirational, motivational speaker, Mike George. So Mike George, welcome. And we are so glad to have you around with us. Yeah. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Introduction. It's great to be with you. I think I'm just unmute myself. There we go. And a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in, first of all. It's an honor and a pleasure to share this time with you. It's just a pity I'm not actually in Bahrain itself, having spent a couple of years there many, many years ago. I know it so well, and it's changed so much over the past 30 years. So I would prefer to be there than here, but little viruses will have their way, as they say.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Good. So let's we don't have a long time together, so let's embark on the journey. And the reason I'm kind of here, basically, the true introduction of me, for those of you who know me, is that I got very stressed out about 35 years ago, very unrelaxed in my life, and that's what stopped me in my tracks and made me kind of explore and work out, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to change in my life? What's really going on? And that was when I encountered this very simple idea that's missing from all our education, and it's called self-understanding. It's the big hole in our formal, informal upbringing, education, everything. This idea of self-understanding, because if I don't understand me, then I can't manage me. And that's when the stress comes in, the unrelaxed states begin to emerge when I'm not managing myself very well. And that's why we see in the world today a lot of people in a very unrelaxed, anxious, insecure state, because they just really don't understand how to manage their own energies better, their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, etc. So tonight is really all about how to kind of begin that process of self-understanding, I guess. And I've put it in the context of 4 levels of relaxation, essentially 4 levels of our energy, which we need to understand a little bit more clearly. so that we can manage it a little bit better. We can manage these energies a little bit better. And I'm still doing that after 35 years. So it's not going to happen in an hour or a day or a week or a month. It's an ongoing process. And that's essentially because the self, the I, the me, at each of those levels is kind of unlimited. We're kind of depthless in our awareness and in our, well, every aspect of one's self. So let me start with the basic level, the lowest level, if you like, but it's not low, it's just a different level of energy, and that's the physical level. And there's tons of material these days on diet and exercise and rest and relaxation, the essentials basically of looking after and maintaining your physical health. And I'm not going to talk a lot about that, other than the balanced life is listening to your physical body and being wise enough to follow the signals you get from your physical body. And that means making sure you eat healthy and you get enough rest and you get enough sleep. For you personally, it's not the same for everyone. We all have different metabolisms, if you like. But a balanced life is having listened to those messages from our body and aligned our life to getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise, getting enough switch off, relax time, and making sure we eat the right things. And there's just a ton of information out there on each of these areas. But these areas really provide the balance for the one thing that we're here to do, which is, well, doing, which is creating action, which is being creative. And so we create our actions, we create our behaviors, we create our attitudes according to how our physical energy is balanced in our day-to-day life. If it's not balanced, it will affect the quality of our creativity. And so this idea of being balanced and being centered enters the paradigm of relaxation. Why am I creating this physical balance? So that I can be centered and clear and accurate and really good at creating. And so if you think about it, if you sum it all up, your life is your story. Your life is your story, and we each get to create our own story. You're not creating someone else's story, and they're not creating your story. I'm creating my story. So I've got to give myself the best chance to do that, the best ways to do that, the best energy to do that with. And so that's why, unless I'm physically able to relax and rest and I'm balanced physically, then that makes it begins to make it possible. But then we come one level up and we look at the mentality, the mind. What's going on in our mind? How does that affect how relaxed we can be? And therefore how creative we can be, how creative we are. And essentially, it's about understanding what interferes with the quality of my creativity. And what's interfering is my thinking. And most people, they kind of think too much, or they're thinking about, they're worrying, they're thinking worry thoughts, or they're thinking frustration thoughts, or they're thinking excited thoughts. And so they're not relaxed at a mental level. And the main reason for that is no one teaches us how to relax our minds, how to think, basically. And it's not a question of learning from outside in. You can get someone's map, and in a sense, I'm kind of laying out my map, or a map for you tonight to look at. But in a sense, you have to map your own inner territory. And when you start mapping, in other words, understanding what influences your thoughts or your mentality, then you'll come prior to your thoughts, and you'll notice that it's your perception that is a huge influence constantly, usually outside of our awareness, on our thinking. And prior to perception, it's our beliefs. And so the beliefs we carry in our consciousness, and most of those beliefs are kind of trapped in our subconscious, once again, outside of our day-to-day, moment-to-moment awareness. They're assimilated from the world around us from a very young age. Parents, teachers, culture, we grab the information and we we consume, we eat the information like food, and then we generate our beliefs and belief systems out of that raw material. And so if I'm unrelaxed in any way mentally, and if, in other words, if I'm not the master of my mind, and if I'm not creating accurate thoughts, then it's because I'm influenced primarily by my beliefs and belief system. So no one else is to blame. It's me that's holding on, that's created and holding on to my version of the beliefs that I have. Yeah, now, for example, if you believe the world is a dark and dangerous place, and many people do, well, they're not consciously believing that all the time, but it's there. It's a terrible world. It's a violent world. It's awful. And so that will shape your perception. So you will start to see situations, events, and whatever happens in the world as a threat. And that means you will think thoughts of I am being threatened. I have to be careful. I shouldn't take risks. And that will generate the emotion of fear in some form or other, anxiety, tension, worry. And so you will be therefore very unrelaxed. And that's coming from this belief, mostly subconscious, which is generating the perception, which is generating the thinking about what's going on. And that's why I have to sit quietly, quite regularly, even now after 35 years, and just check my beliefs. What beliefs are influencing me on the inside? And the belief that influences most people most often, that needs to be challenged, and is the belief that other people in situations and events, essentially, are responsible for how I feel. Yeah, this is the universal, global belief. You find it in every culture, and it's when people then see themselves blaming others for how they feel. So the belief leads to the perception, leads to the thought, and that leads to the behavior. And so if I challenge that belief, I might, if you sit with it and look past it, look beyond it, in your consciousness, you might rediscover a deeper truth. And that's where the truth lives. It lives in your state of consciousness, your state of being, at the core of your being. And if you stop for a moment and you just challenge that, is that belief true? Are they really responsible for how I feel, for my anger, for my fear? Wait a minute, hold on a second. Now, wait a minute. They're not inside my head. They're not creating these unrelaxed mental states. I'm responsible. It's me. And so when that penny drops, when you have that realization, it has the potential, unless you pick the penny up again, it has the potential to change the way you live, to change the way you think, to change the way you react, change the way you interact. It has that potential. That's the power of that one belief, that it's me that is the creator, not someone or something or some other event. I think the second most powerful belief that is predominant in the world, and we inherit this belief from the big people in our life, from our parents and teachers also, and it's the belief that we can control others, that others are controllable. In other words, when they don't do what I want, when they don't be what I want, then I start getting upset, otherwise known as anger or frustration or irritation. And so I become very unrelaxed mentally, because the belief that we have absorbed and that we've created our version of is that they should do what I say. They should be the way I want. Yeah, and when they're not, then we get upset. Yeah, and so if you challenge that belief, that one simple belief that other people should do what I want, that the world should dance to my tune, when you challenge that belief, you may realize just underneath the belief, within your consciousness, is the truth. The truth is you can't control anyone. It's not possible. Even if you put a gun to my head and say, go on my knees, who decides to go on their knees? It's me. And you can do that 1,000 times and you get 1,000 people going on their knees, and you will learn to believe that you're in control. But what you're not seeing is the decision they make to go on their knees. And so one day someone will call your bluff and they'll say, no, go on, shoot. I don't believe you will. I'm using a very extreme example. But what happens with mums and dads and managers and leaders in organizations is that they shout and people jump. And so they fall under the illusion. I made them jump. I control them. And therefore, I will do a lot of shouting. I will do a lot of ordering to get what I want. And so this is how the belief that you can control others gets stuck in our consciousness. And if we look just below that, we'll see an even deeper one. And this is the belief that other people are responsible for my happiness. Yeah, that's why I'm always trying to control, because deep down, I'm not aware of it. It's outside my awareness. I believe that if they do what I want, only then can I be happy in myself. So the conditioning, which is our belief system, goes very, very, very deeply into our consciousness, into our subconscious, really. So we're not aware that we're carrying these beliefs, but we're just upsetting ourselves. We're making ourselves unrelaxed at the mental level. And then there's the whole belief around goals. It's good to have goals. It's good to have aims in your life. It's a good focus for your energy. It's going to help you use your energy in the right way, in the right direction. But then the big mistake people make is that when they have a goal, is that they will only be happy in themselves when they achieve the goal, when the goal is achieved. And so they spend their life struggling and striving to get there, to achieve the goal. And it's in the struggle and the striving, I've got to make it. I've got to be successful, because my definition of success is based around achieving this goal or those goals. And so they struggle and they strive and they make themselves, in the process of getting there, quite unrelaxed, right? Sometimes very stressed. I'm so scared I won't get there. And so they're tied into this belief that you can only be happy when you reach the goal. And then when they get to the goal, the next thing they do is they create another goal. And that's because they become addicted to the struggling and the striving, to the angst, to the tension, the worry. I won't make it. I better have another goal and then try again, and then I can be successful. And so beliefs around goals, beliefs around success, they all require to be looked at, if you like, challenged within ourselves in order to understand the truth about these aspects of our lives, these aspects that we're taught, that we're kind of conditioned by those big people called parents and teachers and culture and society, etc. So this is how I'm going to find relaxation at the mental level, by challenging my beliefs and noticing how the beliefs that I'm carrying are generating thoughts and attitudes that are not relaxing within myself. It's never anyone else, it's me. Even though I receive those beliefs from someone else, I've created my version of them, and I'm holding on to them in my belief and in my consciousness, sorry. Yeah. So the next level of relaxation is when we go to something called our emotions, our emotional level. And here it gets a little bit more subtle and a little bit more challenging, actually. And definitely, this is not something we're taught to understand very deeply, very fully in our life. And this is the idea that if you become emotional in any way, it means you're attached to something in your consciousness. Attachment doesn't happen outside, it happens inside, within your mind. In other words, if you get a new carpet and the new carpet arrives, the new carpet's on the floor, the carpet exists in two places at once. It's out there on the lounge floor, but it's also in your mind. Yes, there's a version of that carpet in your mind, and you're thinking around that carpet, that's my carpet. And then someone walks across the carpet, they spill some coffee, they stay in the carpet, and you get very angry. In other words, you become very emotional. Yeah. And so why did you become emotional? Because you lost your sense of self in the carpet, in the image of the carpet, not outside That's the material version of the carpet. But the mental version, the image that you've put up on the screen of your mind, is where the real carpet exists. You give reality to that carpet. So you lose yourself, your sense of self, just for a few moments, might just be for 5 minutes or 5 years or whatever, and you lose your sense of self and you say, my carpet. And as soon as someone damages the carpet outside, it's as if they damage you. And so this is why we take things personally. Whenever someone says or does something and you take it personally, in other words, you react, notice the emotional reaction and notice how you're taking it personally, and then notice what you've lost yourself in your mind. It's a little bit like going to the movies. You know, when you watch the movie, you're sitting in the auditorium, and so there's a screen and there's a whole auditorium. So your consciousness is the whole auditorium. That's you. You are sitting in your consciousness, and the screen is your mind. And so when you go to the movies next time, then just sit and just watch the screen and notice how you get lost in the story that's showing on the screen, how you get lost in the characters on the screen. And so the same happens in our consciousness. We get lost in the story we're running in our mind. In this case, it's the story of the new carpet that's arrived. And on my lounge floor, I'm running a story about it. I'm very attached to it. It's my carpet. If it was someone else's carpet, it wouldn't bother you, but it's my carpet. And therefore you're running a story and you're losing yourself in the story. And so someone touches it and they touch you. And so this is emotional reaction. And so the practice here, and this is a daily practice, and you can practice this anytime, anywhere, is well, first of all, to be aware that everything exists in two places at once. It's out there, but it's also on the screen of your mind. It's running a story. You're running a story about other people, about situations, about your job, about how the world is, about the news. You're running your version of everything on your mind. Everything exists in two places at once. That's why when you go to see a movie, you come and talk about the movie afterwards with a friend, you might say, oh, I never saw that. And they say, well, I never saw that. And then we were we watching the same movie? Were we in the same movie? Yes, you were, but you create different versions of the movie out there in here. And that's the bit they don't teach us. Yeah, and so you get lost in your own version. And so the practice to stop getting lost in your version is this idea of detachment, of separating yourself and just observing, just watching. Yeah, just watch. You know, be the witness. And that's not so easy because when you go to the movies, we're used to being stimulated and therefore, oh, isn't it exciting? Oh, it's terrible. Oh, I'm so angry that I shouldn't have done that. And so we become addicted to the disturbance that we create in our consciousness called emotion. This is called emotional addiction. So to stand back and just watch and not get your fix of this emotional disturbance, this emotional addiction, which is very unrelaxing, then it's not easy to do that. And it's like, you've got to be kind of a bit tired. I'm just so tired of being overstimulated and made to think like this all the time. I'm so tired of being emotionally exhausted all the time. And so it's like you've kind of got to reach that point. And then you might practice stepping back and just watching. And then when you do get lost in the story, in the character, and whatever happens to them feels like it's happening to you, that's why you get excited at the story, then when you come out, then you're overexcited, you're overstimulated, and then if you just watch the emotion, observe the emotion, it will die. Yeah, all emotion dies under observation. Yeah, all emotion dies, just subsides when you step back and watch, just observe. And this is you. When you can do that, you're beginning to become the master of what's going on in your consciousness, in you, basically, which is it's not separate. You're not what you see in the mirror in the morning. You are the conscious being that animates what you see in the mirror in the morning. Yeah. So this is this is how to manage your emotions. Now, I just a little aside here because I'm sure some of you are thinking, but what about love and what about happiness and so Love for me is not an emotion. It's a natural state of being. Yeah, happiness for me, it gets confused with excitement and pleasure. Yeah, these are emotions, but true happiness is contentment, is not an emotion. Yeah, and so I've got to untangle these emotions from my natural feelings. So this untangling, this disentangling, this separating has to happen as I map my own territory. Yeah, the territory of my own consciousness. This is what they don't teach us, and this is why we're here, because I'm interested in how do I relax at the level of my consciousness. To do that, I've got to map the territory myself. Yeah, so you can listen to me for hours and it won't make a difference. You can listen to the most wisest master for hours. It won't make any difference until you map your own territory, till you sit down and say, right, what's going on in here? There's a little exercise you can do when you become too emotional. Yeah, when you become too emotional and you're in the meeting at work or something happens and you lose the plot, you're not going to suddenly start being not emotional, but you're going to lose the plot, as they say. And so there's a little 5-step process you can go through. And so if you play with this process, it will also begin to help you understand yourself with greater clarity. Step number 1 is being aware. I'm aware. There's irritation arising right now. Yeah, self-awareness. Oh, I'm becoming irritated. Yeah. Step 2 is to acknowledge the irritation is present. In other words, it's not the guy in the car in front that's making me irritated, but it's me that's creating the irritation because he's going too slow. He's not responsible. I'm acknowledging responsibility. So awareness and acknowledgement. The third step is to accept the emotional state. Don't fight your emotions. If you fight and resist your emotions, you suppress them. You know, you start to push them down, and then they build up inside, and then one day, explosion time. So always accept there's irritation, you're back again. I thought you'd gone, but you're back. And so I accept the presence of the emotion in my consciousness. That's the origin, not somewhere in your body, but in your consciousness. And so step number 4 is to ascend. This is what I called earlier on detached, being detached from it. Being aware of it, not running away from it, but not avoiding it, not caring less about it, but separating, just observing it from a distance. You know, there's such a thing as a management skill called detached involvement. So when someone else is emotional, you stay engaged with them, but you don't become emotional with them. You don't need help yourself. You're there for them, just listening. And this is called detached involvement. So you do that with yourself. You detach, okay, let me look at the emotion. You're already doing it in stage 3 as you're accepting it. You're already beginning to pull back. Sometimes it's called helicoptering out. You just like a helicopter, you rise above it. And then step number 5 is to attune. You tune into the center. Yeah, and this is why the practice of meditation or contemplation, whatever you want to call it, is like coming back to tune into the center of your being, yourself, your consciousness. Yeah, it's like a hurricane. You know, when there's a hurricane, there's a storm. And so where's the quietest place in a hurricane? It's the center, the eye of the storm. And so it's the same in our consciousness. When we're very emotional, there's a storm in our we're really upset. Oh, there's because energy's going around and we've lost complete control. And so now I'm going to come back to the center, the eye of the storm, where I always find my peace, my centeredness, if you like. I always find my power back in the center. So I'm going to come back and center myself. And that's the practice of meditation. That's essentially what meditation is. It's coming back out of what's happening, the story you're running in your mind, the energy that's being generated by that story called emotion. You're coming back to the center. That's why it's necessary to practice some kind of meditation at this stage in all our lives, I would say, because we've all been sucked into entertainment as necessary to relax. But it actually does the opposite. Entertainment makes us unrelaxed. That's why we pay someone to when we go to the movies, we pay someone to see a horror movie. We're paying someone to frighten the living daylights out of ourselves. We're paying someone to make us generate fear, anxiety, worry in our consciousness. And that's what stress is. That's what unrelaxedness is. So I go out into real life after watching the movie. I'm now in the habit of generating a little bit of fear here, a little bit of anxiety there, a little bit of worry there. And I talk about it with my friends over coffee. We talk about these emotions and, oh, I'm so worried. I'm so anxious. And oh, you are too. Oh, that's great. Oh, we're both feeling this so bad together. And we feed each other. And then Hollywood makes an absolute fortune. And then we wonder why we're not able to be relaxed, to be still, to be clear, to be focused. Yeah. So this is the third level. This is the emotional level, and there's methodologies that can help you there. The fourth level, the highest level, is the spiritual level. It's the heart level, if you like. Yeah, I kind of do the same. We have two hearts. Heart of the body, and then heart of our consciousness. That heart, sometimes it's called soul, self, spirit, or just the I that says I am. Yeah, the core of my being, if you like, the core of my being. And here, an unrelaxed state is kind of generated by that little voice. You have this little voice in the back of your head sometimes, and it kind of whispers to you. And it says, kind of says, what am I doing here? And why am I doing this? And actually, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And that little voice that whispers, sometimes it whispers most when you get to your desk in the office in the morning. And you go, what am I doing here? And this is the voice that's telling me I've not yet learned to create meaning in my life. Every human being is a maker of meaning or meaningfulness. Yeah, this is the core creative capacity, if you like, of consciousness, is to make meaningful. And someone who's able to make meaning out of anything that's going on around them, in other words, they have a high level of what they sometimes call spiritual intelligence, is that they'll never be shocked or surprised by anything. Nothing can throw them off their centeredness, their relaxedness, if you like. Yeah. And so that you can imagine how challenging that they're never shocked, never surprised by anything. And you might say, well, life would be awful boring if you weren't surprised and shocked by what goes on. How boring would it be? And then I would say, well, try it. Go there and see not how boring it is, but how you're able to see everything with tremendous clarity, and you're able to ascribe meaning to whatever is going on around you. And then people will want to talk to you. They'll want to, well, what's going on? I don't understand what's happening. And because you've got a clarity in your consciousness, you'll be able to share with them. And you won't lose your calm. You won't lose your peace, if you like. You'll be able to share both that energy, that vibration, and the clarity of understanding. So there's three questions that I need to ask myself before I can restore this idea of being able to be a maker of meaningfulness. And those three questions are the oldest questions that have been around for a long time now. And question number one is who am I? Is my sense of who I am. Question number two is what am I? And that's to do with my nature. What's my natural state as a human being, as a being of consciousness in human form? And then the third question is, why am I here? What's the purpose for being here? What's the purpose of life? And these are the three core questions that we all will encounter at some stage in our life. And most people will ask themselves at some stage, well, who am I? And what is the true me? And then why am I here? And most people, when they encounter these questions, they don't spend a lot of time exploring them. That they kind of, oh, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, well, okay, I've got a theory about that. But anyway, what's on TV and what's for dinner? Or when's the game kick off? We kind of encounter these questions, but they're a bit difficult. And so we kind of look for distraction. And it's when we go for those distractions that we lose our centeredness, our relaxed state. So very quickly, I can give you the answer in theory to these questions, but it's like, won't make much difference until you realize for yourself, until you have your own aha, now I see moment. Yeah, this is called self-realization. And so I'll share the theory on my map, if you like, in words, but it won't make a lot of difference until you sit down and go, now, wait a minute, hold on a second. What does that mean? And how do I answer this question for myself? Yeah, and so the question number one, who am I? And life is two energies. So we all know this, and you probably heard this before. There's two energies interacting. There's the what do we say? I'm a human being. I have a human form, and there's a being of consciousness. There is matter and mind, body and soul. This energy here is very physical. You can see it, touch it, burn it, drown it, cook it. Oh, well, not cook it maybe, but it's very tangible. This energy here, the soul, consciousness, being, is very intangible. And so life is a dance between these two energies. But we're taught to identify with the material. That's why when you go to bed in the morning, you look in the mirror, and that's where your stress begins. Because you believe, there's that word belief again, you believe, you've been taught to believe that what you see in the mirror is what you are. Yeah, and then we start going, well, do I look like this today? Now there's a wrinkle here, and I better dress nicely here and put something on here, and now I can face the world. No, this is your physical form, and that's not the real me, and that's why things kind of don't go too well for many of the rest of the days. I'm the other energy, the energy of consciousness, the being, the intangible, the invisible animator of form, the occupier of form. You can't prove it scientifically because science has nothing to say about consciousness, because you can't get it in a test tube. We can't both poke at it. But you can prove to yourself, and you do it quite frequently actually, when you talk to someone and your eyes glaze over and you tune out. Yeah, and and you leave the room. And then they say, are you still with me? And in that moment, you go to Zoom. Oh, sorry, what were you saying? You were saying something? And if you're very aware, you'll notice you left and you have no idea how long you left for. Yeah, you went beyond the awareness of time passing. And you have no idea where you went. You went beyond the awareness of space. So you went beyond time and space. And in that moment, you prove to yourself that you are a being that is beyond time and space, that is of another dimension. It's not mystical, it's no big mystery. You prove to yourself that you are not stuck. Your body is stuck in the room, but you can't be anywhere else, but you can leave the room in 1 second. And if you ever learn to meditate, which I'm sure many of you do, then you'll know you can do this anywhere, anytime in 1 second. Yeah. And when you come back into the awareness of time and space and change and movement, you come back refreshed. You come back recharged, renewed. For some reason, your energy is completely refreshed. And so that's because you went beyond what's going on, what's happening, what's going on. You started spending your energy, or you stopped spending your energy on so many distractions. So this is the idea of who I am. And it's this realization that sometimes it's who I'm not, it gets you to who I am. The process of elimination. You're not the labels that people give you. You're not what's in your passport. You're not what you do. You're not where you're from. You're not physically. So all of these, you can eliminate all of these, but it's not easy because we've been taught to build our sense of who I am out of those material things. And so that's the challenge. It's dropping. Oh, I'm not that. I'm not where I come from. I'm not what I do. I'm not what I create. Wait a minute. Wait, yeah. So you have to kind of wrestle, if you like, and explore for yourself, see for yourself. And the next question is, what am I? What's my nature? And we've been taught to believe that the natural emotions that you feel, like anger, fear, and sadness, we've been taught to believe that they're, well, human nature. It's human nature to be upset. It's human nature to be scared. And it's human nature to be sad, especially when you've lost someone. And so we've taught to believe that they are natural. And when you carry that belief, then it gives you a great excuse to not do anything about them. Yeah, to not change them. In other words, to stay in a form of emotional suffering for the rest of your life, to create those emotions and believe that they're okay for the rest of your life. But then do you ever see seminars and workshops? Do you ever see them, come along and we'll teach you how to be the angriest person in the world? Do you ever see a seminar called how to create incredibly intense fear in your life for the rest of your life? Actually, no, we've got a workshop for you, and it's going to teach you how to make yourself feel so sad so that ultimately you'll be permanently depressed. No, you don't see those. We would say, if we saw workshop titles like that or course titles like that, we'd say that's so unnatural. That's not natural. Yeah, and yet we're carrying the belief that, well, I'll just, it's not their human nature. Yeah, do you see the contradiction? And so my natural state of being, which is what we all seek, that's why we go on holiday, it's why you want a new car, it's why you want a new job. The natural state of mind, the natural state of consciousness is lovefulness, is peacefulness, it's calm, it's contentment. Yeah, it's compassion towards others. This is my natural state. Yeah, and so I'm not able to be in my natural state because I'm so busy creating these unnatural emotions, believing that they are natural. Yeah, and so we become lazy because beliefs make you lazy in a sense. And so until those emotions become so intense, so deep, so frequent, and the stress becomes so great that I have to do something about it, we will keep creating them until something goes, can't take it anymore, and then we stop and we go, oh, wait a minute, what's going on? What am I doing? And that's what happened to me. That's how I know that this is the process. That's usually what happens to me. And that was what happened to me. That's what woke me up. It just became too much to bear. And I didn't realize I was the creator. And so that brings to the final question. The final question is why am I here? And this is the question of purpose, really. What's the purpose of life? And I've already kind of shared what my perception, understanding, you can call it a belief, it's a belief for you, but I think it's something I know now, is that purpose of life is to do what we're doing all the time. We cannot not do it. And that is being creative. Yeah, you're right. Every minute you're thinking, therefore you're creating. Every minute you're making decisions, therefore you're creating. Every minute you're having a vision of how your future is going to look, therefore you're creating. And so you're here to create your life. You're here to create your story. Same thing. And so creativity is the primary purpose, in a sense, of why we're here. But that won't make sense until you see it for yourself. You can overlay many other purposes, like helping others or making a contribution. Yeah, they're all relevant, but they're all got this one thing in common. Every purpose you can think of will have one thing in common, and that's you need to be creative. And that's why we're here. So I've just got to be a bit careful here because I noticed that I'm kind of running a little bit out of time. And I need to apologize. I completely forgot that someone's translating this and I've been speaking so fast and they must be absolutely exhausted by now. And so let's just take a moment to pause. I know that many of you have got questions and there will be questions in the chat. You put your questions in the chat box, but let's just take a moment to pause and put all that to one side, kind of like in an imaginary box up on a shelf somewhere. It's just information. You can come back to it any time. And let's just take a moment to come back to the center, to center ourselves, to remind ourselves who we are, what we are, and see if we can actually feel that and experience, not experience, but experience that for ourselves. Is to put the world up to one side for a moment. It'll always be there. Come back to it in a few moments, but just to come back to ourselves. And I'll share a few thoughts. There will be an image on the screen. I think you can either look at that image or you can look away at something. And I would advise that if I'm on your screen, don't look at me. Because if you're looking at me, you'll just trigger habits of evaluation and judgment, what's going on, what's in the background. So you want to just rest your eyes somewhere in front of you. And if you want to close your eyes, that's also okay too. Then it's a very simple meditation. I still use it after many, many years. And it helps me to find my centered, most relaxed state of consciousness. So step number one is just relax your body in the chair. Take the shape of your chair and find a posture of relaxation. No music, actually. Don't need to play any music. Thank you very much. So just relax in the chair. If any parts of your body are a bit tense or a bit tight, then just consciously relax that part of your body. Then bring your awareness to your breath and just watch your breathing for a moment. So you're just observing, not forcing, just watching the complete cycle of the out and the in breath. And as you do, you'll notice you become even more relaxed and yet very aware. So then bring your awareness to yourself and take a moment and just see if you can be aware of yourself being aware. And then on the screen of your mind, just create one simple thought. I am a being of peace. Allow that thought to pass across the screen of your mind very slowly. And then let that thought fade away. Let it dissolve into the background. And notice what remains. There's a feeling of peace, a feeling of calm, of quiet, and yet very aware. Now the mind is quiet. A kind of silence arises in your mind. Even if thoughts come, they go, and you're able to watch the coming and the going. And as you watch, you notice your own stillness. You notice you are here at the heart of your being. Silent and still. Silent and still. And then bring your awareness back out to the room around you. But bring that stillness with you. So as you listen through these ears, hear from that stillness. As you look through these eyes, see from that stillness. It's good, thank you. So you can practice that anywhere, anytime. Well, not in the car on the way home from work, but otherwise, it's a very simple meditation, and it gets you started. So let's look at some of the questions. I've got the chat box here. So I'm a manager. I want my team to work in a certain way. Like Mike said, yes, I do get irritated if it doesn't happen the way I want, as I am answerable to my board. My question is, how do we get the team to work the way the company wants without getting irritated or upset if it's not done right? Yes. Yeah. So there's a difference between control and influence. Yeah, as a leader, as a manager, you know, my job is to influence people, but in order to influence accurately and very well over a period of time, I have to realize that I can't control people. Yeah, in other words, I have to realize that if someone says they're going to do something and they don't do it, and I get irritated, that means I was trying to control them. Whereas if they don't do what they said they do, or they've missed the deadline or whatever, and I've really realized I don't control this person, I can't influence them, then my response will be totally different. My response will be, was there a problem? Was there something in the way? Do you need more time? Was there an issue? And so I will seek to understand them, as opposed to seek to blame them by becoming irritated at them, which is a form of blame, really, is to project my emotional upsetness at them. So you seek to understand them. So you're moving into the territory of learning, developing, cultivating your influentiality. Now, you're not going to do that overnight. You spend your whole life getting upset with people who say one thing and do the other. And so there's a habit there. And so now I have to not get rid of the habit, not suppress it, but learn about how to influence people. Yeah, and so you know your people on your team, you know what they're like, you know how they behave, you know what they're liable to miss or not do or whatever. And so you anticipate a little, you practice, you experiment, and you learn to influence those people. And so, and then the other thing is that if you're worried about them missing a deadline, will reflect on you. In other words, the people above you in the organization, if they miss a deadline in one of your team, then the people above will blame you. And so you have to find your inner strength, in a sense, your self-respect, so that, you know, if the team member lets the team down, then it's their responsibility, and it's your responsibility not to blame them, but to correct. And if you keep correcting, if you keep helping, if you keep coaching, you keep guiding, keep influencing them, then they will improve. And the people above you will see that. They'll see your effectiveness in your relationships with your team. But if they hear that you keep getting irritated, keep getting upset, and things are getting worse because you're blaming them all the time, then they'll get no news of that. And then that will reflect on. So it's not black and white. It's messy. That's why relationships are messy. It's good. Anyone else? It's not clear how you staved the emotion. I don't understand that one. Okay.
So, Mike?
Yeah.
There's a question over here.
Okay.
What's the difference between emotions and feelings?
Oh, emotions and feelings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we usually arrive at that question, and that usually has me saying, have you got a couple of hours to spare? So the thing is, you will feel your emotional state. Yeah. But there isn't enough subtlety in your consciousness yet until you start practicing some kind of internal meditation, reflection, whatever. Then you'll begin to notice that you feel your emotions, and you'll begin to notice how your emotional eruptions are coming because you're attached to something or someone or somewhere or some idea, some belief. You'll begin to see the connection between the two. And so you're feeling unnatural feelings. Your emotions are unnatural. And so to restore your natural feelings is necessary to come back to the center, to come back and answer those three questions. Who am I? What am I? Why am I here? And you sometimes you get this natural feeling of easiness, of inner peace, of maybe benevolence towards everyone, which is lovefulness. Sometimes you do feel that, but it's very rare. It's usually when you're on holiday and you've got no worries and you're standing on top of the mountain, there's a beautiful sunset, and you think it's beautiful out there, but it's also beautiful inside, and you feel free. You feel like a free spirit. That's your natural feeling. That exists as potential, as your capacity at all times. But you're so busy with things and people and situations and jobs and worries, things you're attached to. You're so busy with your attachments, you keep making yourself emotional, and you keep feeling those emotions, and they keep exhausting you. But they also are addictive. So emotions are addictive and exhausting, whereas your natural feelings are very empowering. You know, they give you energy. That's probably the best way. But it's deep territory. It's really all about self-understanding.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, related to that, on that topic, here's one question that just came. How to get over negative feelings? This is coming from the Arabic group.
Okay.
How to get over negative feelings.
Okay. I'm going to go really deep here, and because maybe this is the last chance I get to talk to you, I don't know. But when you really understand that you are not material, you're a conscious being in a material form, and you're not Arabic, you're not Western, you're not Eastern, you're not good, you're not bad. Stop giving yourself these labels that you've been taught to give yourself these labels and believe you are these labels. They're just labels. We're all human beings. We're all points of consciousness animating different physical forms. Yeah, and in the material world, there's forms of different colors, basically, different shades. And so that I'm not the shade, I'm not the form, I'm the conscious being that animates the form. That's the essence. Now, when you understand that we've created a language to describe the material world around us, and the material world around us is the world of duality. Yeah, up, down, hot, cold, here, there. There's always opposites. There's always polarity. That's what allows the material world to exist. Everything's in a state of resistance to something else. But in consciousness, there is no duality. And if you start really understanding who you are and what you are, you will notice that thoughts are neither positive or negative. There's no such thing as negative and positive emotions. There is just thinking, and there is just emotions. They're not bad. It's not that you shouldn't be emotional. Yeah, again, this is a whole territory no one teaches us. And so the thoughts are either aligned to your true natural state of being, yeah, your centeredness, if you like. Now, if your thoughts are aligned to your centeredness, then they'll arise very easily, and you will feel quite naturally easy and relaxed, and you'll kind of know that this is the right thought to have at the right moment and the right time. But most of our thoughts, they kind of arise a little bit skewed, a little bit, well, what are you doing? I'm doing, and so they're a little bit not aligned. And what's pulling them out of alignment is what you're attached to in your consciousness. Yeah, it's what you want in your consciousness. That's what's pulling them out of alignment. And that's what's generating the emotional disturbance. Yeah, and so when you are feeling an emotional disturbance, don't blame others. It's not them that's responsible, it's you. And therefore that means it's a signal, it's a sign I have to correct something within my consciousness. I have to recenter myself. So this is not negative, it's not bad. It's just the result of mistakenly becoming attached to something. And so that's what is distorting my thinking, pulling them off center. And so now I need to correct something, which means I need to detach. I need to let go, have a relationship of non-attachment with the carpet. If something happens to the carpet, that's life. Hey, that's okay. It doesn't bother me. You know, coffee plus gravity plus carpet equals stain. Carpets are destined to be stained. Cars are destined to be scratched. That's life. So now can I, and so when something happens to those things, my thoughts don't go, oh my God, you've done my carpet. Oh, this is terrible. I don't do that. I say, oh, okay, all right. Well, let's clean up the stain. That's the next thing to do in this particular situation. Let's clean up the stain. So your thoughts stay aligned to the true and natural you. So that's the best way I can kind of explain it. And I know that you'll forget all of that very quickly. But in essence, in consciousness, there is no positive or negative, but you've been trained brilliantly to believe positive thinking. Got to think positively. I shouldn't be thinking negatively. No, it's terrible. I shouldn't be over there. I'm always thinking negatively. I should be thinking more positively. And so you get caught in the tension between the two. Oh, I was over there. I should be over here. And so you're caught, oh my God, it's terrible. No, understand where your thoughts are coming from. One final thought on this. You'll notice that emotion arises because of what you are thinking. Yeah. Prior to any emotional disturbance, oh my God, it's terrible, there's a thought. And that thought is, this is terrible. And there's an emotion. Whereas when you're centered and in your natural state, feeling comes first. Sometimes it's called intuition. It's this feeling arising from deep within you, and that then generates a thought. For example, you feel your natural state, which is to be very loving and benevolent towards someone. That's the natural state. And you'll feel that, especially towards your children, when they're behaving themselves. You feel, yeah, that's my child. Well, it's probably attachment, but let's imagine it's a natural feeling of love. Then that natural feeling arises, and you feel it arising. It's coming from inside. And then the thought is, what can I do to demonstrate how I feel? In other words, how can I show my love? In other words, care for them. Because love is care. It's the same thing. And so how do I care? And so then you care. In other words, you put it into behavior. So the feeling, the thought, and then the behavior. Whereas when you're emotional, it's a thought. Why are they doing that? And then the emotion comes, and then you're in an eruption. You see the difference? That's okay. It's
Okay.
good.
Yeah. So clear. Actually, there are some questions in line with this emotion and feelings. So I suppose they have been answered. So perhaps we can go.
I've got one here. Emotions and feelings are triggered by outside factors, but also largely affected by genes that you hold, which makes it more difficult to manage. What do you suggest in this regards? Okay, so yes, the trigger is the key word. You know, you're triggered into an emotional state. Something happens outside that doesn't cause your emotion, but it triggers you to re-energize an already existent belief, perception, thought in your consciousness. Now, it's got nothing to do with genes. Your consciousness has got nothing to do with your genetic makeup is to do with your physical body. Yeah, your consciousness doesn't have genes. Your consciousness is a non-physical energy. This is what I'm trying to help you to realize. And therefore, it's not affected by your genetic makeup. Sure, whatever's happening to your body will affect your thinking and your state of being. But that's the wrong way around. In other words, we become a slave to our sensual input, to our senses, because we believe we are just the body. So we believe pleasure, which is an comes from outside in through our senses, we've learned to believe, well, that's the only happiness. So I need more pleasure to be happy. So we go looking for more pleasure, more stimulation. And then we get, oh, that's happiness. That's why it's only fleeting. But then that leads to addiction and dependency. Have you not noticed? That's why we become addicted to external stimulation. And we haven't yet learned to turn it around and be the self-generators from consciousness of our feelings of happiness, of contentment. Yeah, and that's the challenge. That's the spiritual journey. That's the journey, sometimes they call it waking up, becoming more aware, whatever you want to call it. That's why we're here in that sense. So your genes have nothing to do with ultimately your consciousness. They don't shape your emotions at all, in a sense. So I've been practicing non-duality for some years, non-judgmental, and ended up a loner because I'm outcasted for thinking differently, and others' lack of understanding where I'm coming from. Any suggestions to how to deal with this? Okay. So if it's true that you are practicing and you've been waking up and becoming more aware as the process and realizing that consciousness is one, there's no duality, but there's duality in the world around you. If you've truly realized this, then one of the signs is you'll be okay alone. Yeah. In other words, if it bothers you, it means you still want something from other people. You still want them to make you feel okay. You still want them to be the basis of your self-esteem and self-respect. You still want something from them. That means you haven't fully realized who you are. If you've fully realized who you are, then you're okay, whether you're alone or whether you're with people. Yeah, there's no neediness. There's no loneliness. Yeah, you're okay being alone. And yeah, there's not many people like this. And they're people who are okay. Yeah, no problem. I'm happy on my own if I need to be. This is the way circumstances are. But I'm quite equally happy just talking to people and chatting and getting on. And because life is relationship. Relationship is interesting, and it's a mirror for me to look in. And so you'll be okay. But if you're not okay, it means you've still got some inner work to do. Still some realizations to happen. How do you remove the mental fog? It stays the whole day. Meditation is a very slow process to see the results. Yeah. Okay. So there's really 4 practices that I have to build into my life to kind of awaken and clear up, if you like, I don't want to use the word mess, but to clear up my consciousness. There's 4 things you need to do. One is meditation, is the practice of sitting down, going within, just like we did earlier. That's necessary. The second is contemplation, which means the studying of or the contemplation of the wisdom of others. Yeah. So find a source of wisdom and consume it, absorb it. In other words, people are further down the line, or spend time with people further down the line, more awake, and share experience. And so that's necessary for you to express what you feel and to listen to what they're going through. And that helps. And then those 2 things will stimulate what's called realization. Aha, now I understand why I'm not thinking clearly, why there's a bit more fog in it. Now I get it. So the 3rd stage is application. You have to apply your understanding. In other words, you have to put it into practice, into practical, behavioral, real life situations and relationships. Then the 4th thing to build into your life is contribution, is to find an area in your life where you just give your energy, whether it's time, attention, money, or wisdom, or whatever. It doesn't matter what a level it's at, but you're reinvigorating the intention to give of yourself without wanting anything in return. You know, that's not easy, because we've been totally programmed to get, keep, acquire, obtain, hold on to it, don't let anyone else get it, keep it, keep it, keep it. And so we live and we close ourselves around the things that we're attached to, and we live in fear of losing what we're attached to. And so this is where the fear comes from. So find an area of your life where you can relearn, reinvigorate this natural, because this is our most natural state, is to give of ourselves. Consciousness is designed to radiate outwards, to be outgoing in a sense. And so it's a combination of these practices built into your day-to-day life that eventually will make the difference and we wake up, we become more aware in the process. But the combination of them is different at different times for different people. It's not just one, no. It's about experiment with each one and just see what feels right for you at this point in time in your life.
Excuse me, Mike.
Yes.
Over here, there are questions that had been given earlier. So if you mind to take the questions that had been given earlier.
Okay.
One is, I had a wrong operation. Often I feel pain in my body and I have anxiety and resentment. So I guess he wants a kind of suggestion from you on how he can deal with this situation.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's made a mistake in operating or doing something, and you've trusted them, and they've made a mistake in what they've done to your body, the first thing you have to do is to give forgiveness. Forgiveness means forgiving. In other words, you have to give of yourself. I am forgiving. In other words, forgive them for that mistake. Otherwise, you hold a kind of resentment in your consciousness, and that floods down into affecting your physical health. You know, what you do in your consciousness does affect your physical energy, obviously. I mean, I won't go into that. So the first thing you have to do is it's past, it's gone, the mistake has been made, so let me forgive that person. And so you're, in a sense, you're sending your love to that individual, the vibration. Forgiveness is love in action. And so you're sending that vibration. And as you send it to that person, you're also giving it to yourself. You're giving it to your own mind, your own body. In other words, you're giving a healthy energy to your own body. And so that over time will help you to overcome the mistake, both in the other person and the effect of that mistake on your own physical health. You can't change it. You can't go back. There. You have to just say, well, okay, this happened, accept it, move on. What do I do now? And you read stories of people who are able to do this. You know, they go off to war and they come back without an arm, without a leg, and they run marathons every year, or they do, you know, X hours of charity. They doesn't make a difference to their life. Sometimes it's called resilience. And so they've got this inner resilience. Where does it come from? The elbow, the leg, the up? No, it comes from their consciousness, from their understanding. This is what has happened. Can't go back, can't change it. How do I move forward with it? And so it's a creative challenge. You have to create your way forward. Yeah, I'm not sure if that helps, but.
Okay, Mike, another question that has been given earlier. It has something to do with the current situation. I wonder how can we deal with the upcoming events regarding Corona and us not being able to travel, and with the curfew, what will happen? So how they can deal with this situation?
It's not a question of how you deal, because I don't know what the future is going to bring precisely. So how can I answer that question? How do you deal with it? All I can say is, look, you're watching a movie, you know, watch a movie, watch the news as a movie, read the paper as if you're reading the script of a movie. Yeah, you can't change it. It's this, whatever is happening in front of you is happening in front of you. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I don't know what it is, and so my responsibility is to sit back and just watch it as a movie. So I don't lose my peace. I don't lose my capacity to be loving and a benefactor for those around me. I don't lose my centeredness. I don't lose my ease. Yeah. So watch the movie and remember, it's just a movie. Yeah. Now, if it's just a movie, then I'm in the movie. I'm watching and I'm also in it. And so if I'm in it, as you are, as we all are, then the next question is, what role do I play in the movie? And you get the chance to play the role that you create. Yeah, this is a freedom of creativity. You know, what role are you going to play? And who are you going to play it for? Who's your primary audience? Is your family. Who's your primary benefactors of your role? Is your family, or your workplace, or your team, the people around you. And so what role are you going to play for them? Well, I'm going to try and help them, actually, because, you know, they've got to deal with the same scene as well. So, and they're freaking out. So how can I help them not freak out? In other words, how can I not freak out myself? By having this consciousness, I'm just watching a movie. Yeah, it sounds easy. It's not, it's challenging, but that's all you can do. And you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Whatever happens is fine. It's just a scene in the movie. Just like you don't watch and go to the theater and run up on stage and say, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. That's terrible. That's why I do that." You don't get upset with what you see on the stage. You accept it's just a play on the stage. And so all you're doing is watching the play of life. Yeah, sometimes in India it's called Leela. It's the play of life. It's life unfolding. Final piece of advice on that, and I think probably that's enough, I think, is there's a lovely philosophy which you might want to have a read at, and you can Google it, and it's called Desiderata. Desiderata. And you can Google it, and Google will take you there, and it's just one page. And it's a beautiful philosophy of how to approach life. And one of the ideas in it is that everything in the world is happening exactly as it should. Everyone is doing exactly what they're meant to be doing. That sounds easy, but it's like if you inculcate that, if you really lived that, accepting whatever goes on, accepting whatever people are doing, then you will bring to your scenes, to your situation, to your relationships, you will bring an energy which will be useful for them, beneficial for them. But if you're, oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh, it's terrible, it's awful. How do I do it? And then you're just adding to the confusion, possibly the violence in your own situation, and you're just adding that to the world. And so it's not making the world a better place. So have a read at Desiderata and read it over and over again. It's lovely, some lovely ideas in it. And it's just a beautiful philosophy to live by. I'm not sure if that helps.
Okay, Mike, here's one persistent question, if you don't mind. Okay, one more?
Question.
Yeah, okay. Does the answer, do the answers to the existential questions, which you mentioned, change over, or it would evolve with time? They change or they evolve with time?
No, for you personally depends on how you answer those questions for yourself. And that you can get a deeper understanding. Your depth of realization that becomes deeper perhaps over time. And you go, aha, and now I see even more clearly than I did yesterday. So yeah, but it's not a question of finding the answer. It's like it's your consciousness awakening. Yes, awakening to who I am. It's not an intellectual thing. It's a deep sense of who I am, what I'm here to do. And I can answer that question for hours on end, and it won't make any difference until you sit down. And the question you've just asked won't arise when you start going, aha, now I see. That question won't arise. It only kind of arises when you're listening to someone else sort of attempt to answer the question not very well.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks like our time is up, though there are still a number of questions that are there, some related to what you have said already.
If you send me the questions, I'm quite happy to answer them on paper, and then you can send them out to people.
All right. Okay.
If you have their emails.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much. So, okay. Last statement, really having you around. You have said earlier the big hole, which we need a lot of points to fill that in with the self-understanding. So we truly appreciate what you have provided us tonight with those aha moments to fill in the gaps in this big hole. It's a process that we have to go through, and your presence with us is always something that we treasure and we value to keep us going as much as you have done. You're coming back and we are going. So it's really, really a lot of wisdom that you are sharing with us tonight. I think from everyone, overwhelming thank you so much. It's really so lovely to have you around. Thank you, Mike.
Stay safe. To be here. Thank you for the invitation.
We look forward to having you physically with us, really. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.